So welcome everybody to Divine Design Academy. You know you're in here in our private group here. This is Lauren Antuofermo's, I always want to say birth child, but that's not right. It's brainchild.
Brainchild, yeah.
It's her heart child. It's from some part of her emanation. And this is a little series I'm doing called Meet the Teachers, in parentheses after that, in training. Tonight is just meet the teachers. Meet the teachers. Both are here tonight. The Laurens, the Lauren A and the Lauren O. They're the only ones that can see comments. So I'm just gonna keep asking questions. And if you guys need to stop and do that, can you both see comments?
I will pull it up so I can.
Okay. I can do some of that as well. So, oh, hi, my name's Christine Marguerite. If I haven't introduced myself, Christine Marguerite, Lovevolvenergy, energy geek, channeler of energy, meditation aficionado, etc., dancer, nose picker, baker. I do things like that. So that's who I am. Most of you know that. And I've been a little MIA from the book that is faced for a while, but I have made my return oeuvre here just over the last couple of days. And if you haven't checked out my other two, I did a little chatty interview with Diane Jankowski and also with Alyssa Helfrey, and those are both really great. I will eventually share those once Mercury wants to work with me well and we can get all the tech together to other places. So it's not within our little pod here. Anyway, so tonight we're chatting with the mama bear herself, Lauren Antuofermo, and another mama bear, Lauren Olivia. So if you did Body of Love, Body of Light last year, you know that Lauren Olivia was co-teaching a lot of the sections. So she's really integrated. What's happening this year, and these two will talk about themselves in just a minute, and why we're doing the teachers is that they've taken on a couple of us who have really integrated the work and are just have this burning enthusiasm for what this program offers us and potentially everybody else. And we will be joining them, engaging in different sections, teaching, guiding. We'll see how it all shakes out in the next month or so and when decisions are made. So hope that was clear as mud. That's the general gist. And now Q&A time. If you have questions, you can post them in the feed below. Keep them please limited to Body of Love, Body of Light, Body of Joy, if you've heard of that, and Body of Design, which is the new fancy thing that we're engaged in this coming summer. So let's get to it. So Lawrence, I'm going to ask you one at a time to just introduce yourself and as you might this group here. So Lauren A, give us your thingy. Who are you?
This is really fun. I'm so glad you decided to do it. I mean, it's really informal and it's just like feels like we're just playing, which I really like, you know, and just having a good time with it. My name is Lauren Antuofermo, and you know me if you're in this group, right? Big long Italian name.
Spitting water out of my nose.
I know. But I mean, I'm a channel. I started off this spiritual journey officially. You know, I think we are all spiritual our whole lives, but officially in 2012, and then I started working as an exercise physiologist. I started working with the mind, body, spirit. And then I started doing a program called, oh crap, I don't remember. Like I started teaching body of love concepts in the military, like in small groups for I work
Interesting.
Yeah, but it wasn't spiritual, but it was all like the mind body concepts about stress and how it affects the body and how exercise and weight and hormones and things like that. And when we added the spiritual component, it was after years of studying and after years of being under teachers and mediums and taking courses and just doing my own research and started channeling. And then all of that work started to come under body of light. It was just a concept, and it was an inspiration to teach it under the concept of the chakras, and how when we align them, we naturally attune to the things that are positively aligned to us, to our intuition. We ground our bodies. We're not out of body. Our body feels better on the spiritual journey. And so it brought several concepts together. And I started with the beta group, like the first group ever. Alyssa was part of it.
Yes.
Christoph was part of it. You were part of it. Like the first group ever that I did online. And it was so enriching. It was so like developing the sense of self and the sense of co-creation. There's a whole section on there on how you reserve the right to be compassionate once we understand the clarity of situations, like all the ifs, ands, or buts that we work so hard on perfecting as like a spiritual person and as a light worker were addressed with like really like big concepts were really addressed with ease in Body of Light, and it expanded the sense of self from clarity and compassion and joy for the solution rather than spiritual perfectionism, spiritual, ego, like spiritual attainment. It was like,
yes,
this.
And that was all within, let's stay at beta for a minute.
Yeah.
So that was the riding the wave of this energy into beta. Like that is like the core theme through the whole thing.
Yeah.
This compassion for self, joy and love for the solution.
Yeah.
So that
it's not like joy to get over the pain, like that's why compassion and clarity comes first, like where we get that loss. And I just like, I think the biggest thing, that you just mentioned is like making sure that we don't spiritually bypass, but we could still have joy, for the solution when we have that like clarity and compassion.
When we see that option there. All right, before we get too much further into this, you had mentioned like around Lauren Olivia, you were one of the first people in her beta program. How did you meet Lauren? Did you know her long before? How did that whole awareness of the force of nature occur for you?
I met her on a spiritual group online. So we met there, and we had I think I maybe had a reading with her, and just kind of were in the same like social circle there. And then we went to a retreat together and we roomed together, and then it was like, okay, now we're it was like stepbrothers, like, okay, I think we're best friends. I know. We just become best friends. Really was how it was. I was like, and so and then right after that, I took the beta Body of Light, and I didn't even know. I was like, yeah, whatever you're doing, I want to do that. That sounds great. And so I didn't, which was good for me because I didn't have any expectations. I didn't really have any idea what was going to happen. And it ended up being so transformational that then I was like, oh my gosh, you guys, Body of Light. So every time that she would run a course, I'd be like, you have to try this because
Body of Light.
I know it
Body of Light.
Me. Yeah, exactly. And I'm super skeptical.
And stubborn.
I'm very stubborn too. Yeah. So outside of my metaphysical journey and my spiritual teaching and coaching, I am a science-based training. I'm a registered nurse, so I'm trained in Western medicine, and things have to have logical conclusions and all of that stuff. And also probably some of my Mercury mind too, likes to have things be like linear and neat and orderly and concise.
Yes.
Some of the things I was thinking about this, some of the things that would happen is Lauren would be talking to me about Body of Light concepts, and I would be like, okay, so clarity, that's the first thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And then compassion, that's the second thing. Okay. And then we used to call the third thing something else. It had another C because it was the 3 C's, but joy was ultimately the thing. And so like I would take and I would process what she was saying, and
Co-creation
also
or something
yeah,
like that,
oh yes, and then the energy of what she was saying and distill it into things that were like for my, like I could,
so you could digest it, right?
yeah,
So
that
for
so that
you,
I could go back to it and access and be like, oh yeah, okay, I just need to have clarity about this situation, and then I can introduce compassion, and then I would have joy for the solution.
yeah.
so when you were
Yeah.
coming to, did you have something else did you want to add to that, Lauren?
No, that's like we so ever since we became friends, we started like we visit each other once a quarter. We live on opposite coasts.
Yeah.
We visit each other once a quarter. And every time we did, we would just like start talking about it. And then like I would talk and we would get together and just like clarify and like streamline a lot of the stuff. And I knew in the concepts of my head what it was, but it was so hard to put, some words to it that embodied all of it. And so that's how that's how we got to this end version. Well, this current version of Body of Design, which is like full clarity and full ownership, not just because I think I had to teach it a few times, and full ownership for the person taking it or studying it or working with them, to like just full ownership of it, so that the concepts become their own, not just me spinning.
Yes. All right.
Yeah.
So before we go, I'm so curious about the origins, like the beginning things. And so for Lauren, I want to ask you, before, I know you met in the spiritual group that you were in, were you doing a lot of this kind of mystical esoteric work before you got to that group? Is this like a lifelong path, or were you very science mind and then you came upon this group for a reason, and I don't know what that is, and then you and Lauren really resonated? But where were you coming from?
I had been a seeker from early on.
Okay, yeah.
And so I had, in my, well, I mean, if we go all the way back, I was raised in Catholicism, but there was a lot of things that didn't kind of just jive with my own experience of the world. And then moving into like young adulthood, I went through a phase where I was just like all young adults, I think, really, I was trying to understand more about the world that I lived in. And I happened to be looking into, philosophical things, what was beyond the veil, really. My experience was I peeked behind the veil and I was like, it was intense. And so I said, I'm going to close that and I'm just going to go ahead and just be doing the mundane thing now.
Okay.
That was like, whoa. And so then I did that. And then I got to a place in my early mid 30s where I was like, again, ready to start looking. And the way that my brain works is like just consuming information. And so I was in that phase of consuming information, reading lots of books, watching lots of videos, taking lots of workshops, taking lots of, classes, trying to just all the different things, different philosophies. And then we met up, and then this came into my life, and it was because we all find that niche, that fit is really, really good for us. And this resonated with me, again, for my personal flavor, how I experience the world, the way that I interact with it. It was a good fit for me. And I had, so many profound changes. And it was something that, again, I could digest with my logical, linear mind and still experience in my metaphysical, romantic heart that wants to believe in possibilities.
I think there's a lot of people coming to this kind of work play, to this program, who are there right now.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're super curious and they've had these experiences, but they're linear Western mindset, right? And the buck stops there. And yet, how do you talk about this other stuff, right? And how do you contextualize it? And how do you, as a human mind does, make meaning of this stuff, right? And so here's a way to do that. Here's a way to think about things.
And it felt for me verifiable. Like
Yes.
I could do
Mm.
one of the exercises, or I could do what was suggested. I could do A, B, C, and I would have a specific outcome each time.
Yes.
Which,
Science.
yeah, and that was how I felt
science
about it. I was
mind.
like, oh, okay. Like, and even though there was the part of me that had like, which I approach everything with skepticism, even the things that I, when I step on the accelerator in my car, it's like, well, maybe it's not going to go this time, like everything, even things that we know for
Constant
certain.
curiosity.
I
Yeah.
just always have that, well, maybe it won't this time. But anyway, so I had that.
That's not Gemini for you or anything.
Mm.
My skepticism was always matched with evidence to the contrary.
Yes. Gotcha. So Lauren, I am so intensely curious. Here you are, you're like, oh, I'm going to try this just as a beta program. Like that doesn't happen overnight, right? And you had mentioned, I really perked up when you mentioned that when you were teaching these concepts, when you were in the military and doing the body training and physical therapy, and I'm not sure what you were doing with the people there and the clients you had there, like what are the beginning threads? And because I'm asking that because it feels like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that so much of what's offered is channeled information. And each time, I'm sure each class that you go through, there's a brand newness to it because the group is new-ish or in a different place, and there's still information being channeled through.
Yeah.
So what was that like? Like, am I asking this clearly, or do you want me to ask more specifically?
So I think the reality is like we build up everything like as we're moving ahead, right? And so when I was in the military, I think I was inspired by the fact that I had to, because I worked as a civilian in the Air Force. I was in charge of the fitness program in the Air Force Reserve Command. And it was very results driven. It was very like no give and take. It was either you pass this test and you're fit or you don't. It was the big, killer of careers was your waist size. And even though like I had all the data as to why this test was the most important and why, like what we had to do to keep our troops fit and how we needed to help them and what things we needed to do and it wound up being very discouraging to the point where I didn't feel like I was helping anybody. And it wound up being more admin after a while. And I realized like we were missing the whole person right. So I started by doing like, there was a healthy juice shop that opened up here. I made friends with the owner and I did a few little workshops there. I think that the memories of my flyers come out on my Facebook every once in a while, but it was basically about like, your mindset, your stress levels, and the ability of your body to adapt to circumstances and how you need to condition, like what it is that keeps you from feeling the effects of like, and why eating is more than just your calories in, calories out, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it started to turn more into,
the psychology
behind it, right? So, which I had always been interested in anyway. Like I had always studied psychology and self-improvement. And, even in school, we were taught that like sports psychology, how most athletes visualize their outcome and they become that. And that's how the if you ask the most, like the richest entrepreneurs and the most successful sports performances, those people, athletes, they visualize, they connect with the emotion. And so when I started doing intuitive work and working with the archangels, there was just like doubt, fear, worry, pain, frustration, and all these things that come from past shame, things that we in the light worker community feel like we have to be above it all, and then wind up pushing down our emotions, rejecting them, and really feeling like a failure or feeling ungrounded, not feeling connected to our physical bodies. And so after going through my spiritual awakening, understanding I had lost, ironically enough, lost connection with my body.
Yeah.
And, felt like I didn't have a hold on, everything was up here and not really solidified in my lower chakras. And so when I decided to do Body of Light, it was like I had been channeling and talking for a while and done and talked about this in a spiritual way.
Yeah.
In like lives and stuff that I was doing. And so I decided, I'm like, all right, I'm going to do a class on it. And then I didn't really understand the way that it channeled through. I didn't understand beforehand that it was going to be a set of attunements, that it was going to be supported by the archangelic realm, and that we were going to connect to Gaia so deeply that we were going to use our energy bodies and our visualizations to understand how the body includes health and physical abundance through spiritual commitment to the heart.
Yes.
So the heart was where the whole channeling thing came in. It wasn't even so much about, exercise and diet anymore. It was about how our heart tuned in to the rest of our stories. And that was where Body of Light was born.
So in that initial workshop or that class, you'd been talking about stuff and you're like, yeah, let's do a class. You were talking probably about compassion for the body, for the self, for all variations of emotions. Was the clarity piece in there yet? Was the joy for the solution piece in there yet?
No.
So you went into the workshop with the heart and what about the body and spirituality? And then this other stuff started coming through.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's a lot. Keep going.
Yeah. No, it was a lot. I mean, you described it really, really accurately. The visualization, law of attraction, all of it was starting to fit together. And I think mentally trying to get there, where the athletes were putting their action with their visualization. The visualization came first and their action followed that, right? And that's what Body of Love is. We got Body of Light and we separated, and Body of Love became more about the body and the lower chakras and the health, and how we can attune to Gaia to help support our energy field as we connect with higher and higher realms and higher light codes, right?
So what came first, Body of Love or Body of Light?
Body of Light included Body of Love, and then I separated them.
Oh, okay. Or I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
I took concepts of Body of Light and tuned it to be just, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna make it a specific just for the body.
Yep. That intention, that focus.
Yeah. Because you can use Body of Light processes for any particular intention or any particular focus area.
Yeah.
Because it has a process of understanding divine truth, divine love, and divine wisdom, which is really what we want to do when we're living a life of spiritual connection. And so when you have those three things in relationships or in even your diet, your food, or your ability to concentrate on, what comes next for you or what you're capable of.
Yes.
Of attuning to. A lot of people, for me, Body of Light wound up turning into a program that helped me go from ungrounded spiritual practices to grounded spiritual practices.
Yes.
And it's beyond just a grounding practice.
Yes.
It really is and I feel like it's important to say that, just because it is while all the concepts are simple, it really is fundamentally, probably, I don't know, maybe I'm speaking from a very biased standpoint, but different than most else that is out there. And that's and maybe just it's the way that it all comes packaged together that we put it together.
I think so too. It's really comprehensive. A big chunk of the pie chart that is not addressed at all. Or if it is, it's oh yeah, go look at this. Go look at the mental, emotional, spiritual aspects of these. Go look.
Yeah, but here's how you astral travel. You need the other stuff first. you don't want to astral travel before you're like really understanding of your heart and divine, like your true self, your higher self, and what it means to you to be like, connected to your truth, so that you're not like overly like even with food, for example, in the original program, we still talk about it now, the beliefs that go along with food. Like there's so many different beliefs. Eat this, don't eat that. No, this is bad for you. No, this is now good for you. No, this is good for you. This is now bad for you. It's so much that there is no one right way. There can't be. It's impossible.
It can't be. Yes.
And so, yes, eating organic would be great for the entire world. But some people don't do well on vegan diets. Some people do great on, like depending. And so anyway, the point being that as we adapt to the challenges we face on earth anyway, not everybody can eat perfectly all the time. And sometimes the more we see, the more scared we get of our food, and our body reacts to that belief. All the food is bad and now we can't eat anything.
Oh my gosh. That was totally my big learning thing for Body of Love.
Mhm.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That was her. Like,
Because I decided that this is the truth.
Mhm.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
I just happen to decide that, which doesn't mean, you can make another choice. You can always make another choice. So Lauren, that was your biggie. Lauren,
Yes. And I unraveled that. I had so much fear around eating. If anybody who's eaten with me in the last 4 years you could see it. It was just like apprehension. I wasn't sure what the outcome was going to be. I would selectively eat things there was fear of physical pain or uncertain outcomes. It was just like every kind of aspect of it. And so to be somebody sitting here today who, it like almost makes me cry, like to talk about it, but like can eat without pain and to not have the knee-jerk fear when I come to food is no short. It's like, it's miraculous in my life. Yeah.
Miraculous. Yes. But everybody, if you don't know, we're talking about what I've understood as Body of Love concepts, because it's what we've been talking about. It's focused. It's all these concepts. It's all these ideas and these techniques, approaches to, directed at, well, how are you in your body? What are you putting into it? But not even that. What's your view? What do you believe? Yeah. What do you believe that you don't know that you believe? And how is that affecting every aspect of your life? And in particular, in Body of Love, it's your life of a lived experience in a body.
One of the other unintended or unforeseen impacts that Body of Light had for me was on my relationships. My relationship significantly shifted because I started, and compassion is not a new concept, but I started having clarity about the situation for me, and then being able to give myself compassion and the other person, because I could usually muster compassion for the other person, like, oh, that's too bad for them, almost in a condescending way, but I could still come to it where I'd be like, oh, yeah, so sad, but I couldn't have compassion for myself in the situation, which always kind of left me feeling a little bruised in relationship, because we're all human and, we bump into each other sometimes. So the long and the short of it is that it like expanded and created so much more love in my relationship. So like, not only did I start having a better relationship with my body and start having better relationships with just the people in my life, but then it also, the third thing that for me was it also had an expansive impact on my spiritual practice.
Yes.
Which was almost like a happy byproduct. Like the other two were so significant that I was just like, oh, well, I'm delighted it has this impact too. Mm-hmm.
What impact did it have on your spiritual practice?
I was able to connect more easily and without all of the
dogma.
The fear, the dogma, or like kind of the idea that I had to, there's like some specialness that you had to have to be able to, to channel, to be, I'm trying to think of other things, but like it kind of got rid of it. It kind of made it so like, oh yeah, we all have these abilities. We all have the ability to do this, which I had known before, but it made it real for me.
Okay. And that's that compassion piece.
Yeah.
And you just really said, I'm accepting all of this.
Yeah. Because then I was able to have, like, you know, compassion was what started with me being able to love myself. And that's a very popular concept right now, you know, self-love. But it's, for me, was so much harder to actually like practice, like really.
Yes.
And
see,
so
there's the rub, right?
Yeah. Right. And so, and again, if we take it back to like having like things I could do, like there was a practice that I did giving myself compassion, that then parlayed into me being like, oh, I'm not so bad.
Yeah.
It's not even that I had like self-loathing most of the time. It was just that
it helps with self-judgment.
It just eliminated,
Yes.
It kind of also washed away all the stuff that I picked up from society, my family of origin, all the other places about people's thoughts and ideas and concepts of me and who I should be as a woman and a mother and a partner and all these other things. And I was kind of like, oh, okay.
The things you didn't realize you were judging yourself for, like that's where the self-compassion came in. So yeah, there is self-centered self-love, kind of like, you know, the ego can take over any concept, that's for sure.
Of course it can. Yes.
I know that
claim it for its own.
Yeah, I'm still working through that. You know, like every day there's something, you know, there's a challenge that comes in with that. But the body of light, the whole thing, the first part is about connecting to the body with love. The second part is about connecting to the higher grid of your intentions, like looking to see what your intentions are and why they're important to you. The clarity part.
Yeah, the clarity.
The third part is communicating with your heart to know the difference between feeling guilt, shame, or pain, or true intentions to divinely see the other person.
Yes.
And then the last part is really about the co-creation part, the divine wisdom part, the part where we let go, where we let God, source, or any deity that we want to connect truly to our divinity rather than our fears as humans. And I think where we get misconceptions from of anger and hostility towards one another is when my God is better than your God, or your feelings are more important than my feelings, and my fear is bigger than your protection of yourself, you know. So there's so many other things that are concepts of joy for us that may be concepts of pain for somebody else, right? Like, so we have to know what our joy is and why it is joy. Is it divinely creative to have joy for something that helps others, or is it or is it something that hurts others because it takes something from them that I want for myself? You know, joy is perceiving through the eyes of source too. And so we kind of learn those things, you know, through attrition, not just through, you know, these concepts that we teach, but through understanding them first. Then you see a new lens. And I think for the body of light, it's not a system of belief. It's a system of accessing more joy in your life. It's a system of accessing the understanding of the self through the eyes of love, through the eyes of source, you know, without the necessary punishments and shaming that happens when your chakras aren't aligned and your karma is out of balance, you know. It's not that those things aren't important, but through the eyes of love, like through the simplicity of like where we are today as a society, where like most of these concepts were built on the backs of people who came before us teaching about these things, which, I mean, you're very educated in, but the mind can only hold so much information to process things from. And what I love about the system is that it takes extra effort to study a practice like yoga and you know, Eastern traditional like practices that are really about like securing the foundation of self in the body and then raising it up to God consciousness, where I'm not trying to ascend anybody to the 8th and 10th dimensions, you know. I'm just really getting people to like help themselves understand who they are before they go off traveling into the higher self looking for ascension. You know what I mean?
Yes. So is that what I feel like what I keep wanting to point at is body of joy. And I feel like you almost said that a few
Yeah.
times, or maybe what you were talking about is pointing at this concept of body of joy, because I think we've all heard body of love, body of light. Now it's body of design. And what's this body of joy thing? Is it what you were, if you can give us more clarity on that?
The body of joy, like I have to be careful with how I explain it, because it's easily misconceived to be a joy practice. Once we're in joy, we're okay. Once we're in joy, we have everything that we need and we never have to feel bad again. But the body of joy is really about how we consume material life, how we receive material life. What is it that we're doing that is hurtful to ourselves? How are we receiving joy through the consumption of food? Are we believing that overconsumption is what we need to be happy? Or can we be joyful in the moment with what it is that we can offer others and ourselves? You know, like that whole joy thing is, and bliss thing, it is important. And when you're in joy, you can co-create, you can have what you need and more. But that joy factor often results in need. I need more, I need more.
Yeah.
Have that body of joy come last. You're not forgetting the past, you're not forgetting who you are, you're not doing anything wrong by needing something. Like, I don't want to make it seem like it's wrong to need something, it's wrong to have, you know, a need for things. It's important to understand that joy is not just about the consumption, it's about how we consume and how we receive it. And when we're open to receive, that's when we're abundant. So the whole concept of receiving is really important in each of the body of, you know, light concepts.
Yes.
Body of design. The reason why we call it body of design is because we get to design how we feel, not just what we should feel. We get to design what it is that we will consume, not just what people tell us we need to consume in order to be good people or happy people. We get to design what it is that we feel in confrontation and choose whether or not in that moment we have the stability to use our, you know, third eyes to look into this person's aura and see where their pain is, or are we unstable and we need to get away from them before we try and poke in other people's fields. Like, there's so many things that are relative to the mind and the body that the spirit already knows, and body of love is one way to catch the feelings and offer them compassion, and body of joy is how we are in joy of what it is we are receiving now, if that makes sense.
Yes, that totally makes sense. Yes. Receiving happens with open, soft hands. It doesn't happen with graspy hands.
Coveting, yeah.
Or pushing away hands. It's like joy is held loosely, right? Like a little bird in the hand.
Yes.
Bird of joy in the hand.
And doesn't that, like, it's so funny, just like almost like loosely in the hand, like it could fly away. Reminds me of this story. God, my mother watches this, she's gonna laugh. We had this bird, and I was so happy, and I wanted to take him outside and like show people that I can hold him, and he flew away. And a few days later, his name was Romeo. We're like looking, we hear him.
Romeo.
We thought we lost him or forgotten. He heard our voices and he starts, I went, oh my God, and he starts chirping. I'm like, oh my God, that's Romeo. So I get him and he's on, and we were so happy. He was on my finger and I had my hand over him. I'm like, oh, we got him. And I was older. I was like in junior high school or something.
Yeah.
And right before we got it to the house, he flew away.
Yeah.
And it was so sad, and everybody was mad at me. And I still, like, my guilt is coming up for it. But like when you say
gosh,
bird,
like it was your fault.
Well, I
your
mean,
fault.
you know, you can, as I was kind of stupid, but at the time, but when you let it go, and you try to grab onto it. Like I was so,
Yeah.
yeah, you know, like it goes away. So like, it just reminded me of that story and how I was so happy in one moment it could fly away, but you know, I've had other pets and life has moved on.
But that makes so much sense, like why it's important to learn the clarity piece first, and then the compassion piece second. And those two things together, I think, as a precursor to the joy piece is important.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the ego does really weird things with the joy bit.
Fuck yeah. Exactly.
Right? Like it gets a little freaky and crazy. Anyway, there are different like body of design concepts we can talk about, right? Clarity, compassion, joy for the solution. Then the whole compassion thread, right? Compassion with self. What's your relationship with yourself? What's your relationship with other people? And how are you viewing that? And with spirit. And then how are you expressing co-creatively outwardly with humans, with spirit after that, right? That's a whole other thread of it. And then we haven't even really talked about like with body of joy, the theme there of receiving and receptivity is so loaded for me. Like that's my hot point. That's my hot poker of a point, which I maybe need to, you know, be sitting with for the rest of my life, right? Like that's just a part of my beingness. And so I have so much compassion for that. Will it go away? Maybe. Will it not? You know, who knows, right? But it's just the how does one sit with what is happening with their capacity to receive?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like, because even with me coming up with this program, working with the archangels and working with Lauren, you know, and having that grounded experience where, I mean, she was able to reflect back to me and even work with me to create the current system that we're using.
Yeah.
Mantras. You know, she was like, all right, it's got to be in these. I'm like, okay, we have to have a mantra for each one. We just came up with a mantra for the first one. Then we were like, oh my God, each week needs a mantra. And that's the attunement, or that's the frequency that we add to our systems. But long story short is what I wanted to say to what you were saying about the receiving is like, that is really difficult because there's fear in receiving. There's fear in feeling joy. I think that's why it's like so important. Like we try to rush to the joy and then we get smashed back going, well, the law of attraction doesn't work. Spirit doesn't love us. Spirit is the parent that wants us to be good, you know, good citizens, and will punish us if we don't do the right thing. And so we have to self-sacrifice more. And the whole concept of like just being able to understand these conceptions and these attunements and this energetic work isn't just to have an overnight reaction to what we want. It's more to like assume the position of, assume the position of, and that's when the receiving becomes revealing. So there's a part in body of design where we get to receive that which is already there, and then, you know, almost complement it with gratitude, with compassion, you know, for what we, you know, compassion for what we needed before we step into the joy. What did we need before we stepped into the joy? You know, like those types of things. When Lauren was talking about her stomach, you know, issues and eating food and the fear, it didn't take the first body of love, you know, to change it.
I think that's important to mention.
More and more compassion and more patience for herself until she found a solution that really worked. And medicine and natural things were part of that. Not medicine, but medical, like, you know, solutions and natural solutions and energetic solutions were part of that. But instead of hating herself, instead of fearing food for the rest of her life and getting older with a stomach condition that she couldn't even eat anything anymore, she's now in a position where she feels really good. And it wasn't just through, you know, the energy work, it was the energy work, the alignment work, and the awareness work of knowing what to do next.
Yeah, we, like, all of us has to go forward. It's not just evolving your spiritual self. It's especially now that we're entering age of Aquarius, I feel like that's the clarion call of that. It all has to come.
And that's what I like about this next body of design that we're going to be using, is that it is just, you and I can receive the same information and then we can say the same information, but it comes through our personal filters and experience. And so I feel like this body of design is going to be, everybody is going to have stuff that they are going to be like, oh my gosh, yes, because there's a broader base of teachers.
Yes.
Oh, we didn't talk about that. I want to talk about that before we end.
All right, let's talk about
Are
it.
going
We'll
to
talk
be
for
giving their parts,
yeah.
I like that. I mean, not that I don't love the way that Lauren brings it through, but I like, I hear you talk about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's this other facet of compassion or receiving that I had not heard in that particular way. And then I add it to my Rolodex of receiving.
Yeah. So let's spend the rest of the time talking about this new evolution of body of light of the play. Like when did it occur to you? How many people had to ask you, will you please train me to teach and offer this stuff before you? I mean, was that part of it, or what's the timing around this? Tell us about coming into this.
It really was part of it. I mean, it started when you and I would talk about it and wanting her. I don't even remember, maybe you remember, but just knowing we were going to teach it together and that she had a lot to bring because of the groundedness and the clarity that she offers. She brought new ways to incorporate the energy work of it, to incorporate the concepts on a deeper level. And then there were other people that would come back again and again because they understood the lessons. They felt, not because they didn't, because being there helped them expand. They weren't just like there to, I don't know, it was like the energy that they really loved doing. And they would talk about it. And every time we ran it again, they would come back, just on their own. And they really knew it. I would see them talk. I would see them coach other people. I would see them grow. And I knew that they got it. Like watching them helped me understand it better. Like they were already teaching it through their lived experiences or through what they were teaching, or, not exactly the concepts, but how they were presenting and how they would talk about the program just on their own. Own. And so that's when I decided, I think that if people asked, and I think, well, we should have a system in which they can teach it as like a coaching program, or teach it like other people can use it in their work, because it's not like you can't do other stuff with it. It's just a really good coaching and direction program for people that solidifies almost all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Like Alyssa, she's been there, Christopher Hoffman.
Yes. Yeah. After I took Body of Light, and I know Alyssa in the real world, and it's like, you have to take Body of Light. And then she took it, and then she did the same thing. She was like, oh my gosh, you have to take Body of Light. It's one of those things where you have an experience and you want to tell everybody.
Yeah.
Diane,
Diane being there, she just really sopped it up and just really wanted to use it. And if somebody's like that, they're gonna use it well if they teach it to others. Katie McDougall, she's kind of new to the program, but once we started working together, she was like, we were working together all the time. And she brings another talent, the organization of the program, that was missing beforehand. Sorry, Dee Dee, most of you know Dee Dee. Oh, she does this every time. She's got to get on the couch. So
tell us about this summer.
It's gonna be 12 weeks. It's going to be the concepts of Body of Light and Body of Love. They're reintegrated again. And then there are going to be the new instructors. They're going to be helping to deliver the information. And it's going to be more of a collective of people giving this class than just Lauren or just myself and Lauren. So what did I say? I said the 12 weeks, we plan to start it at the beginning of July. Am I missing other details?
On Thursdays, it's $555 altogether, but we're doing a three-month payment plan at $135 per month. Again, you get like 12 weeks of coaching. There's a workbook that you can buy that you can like write in and have the lessons. It's really pretty. And you will have like you will have like lessons. It's a really guided, it's a guided program for you. It's a guided program that helps you integrate and also execute. Mm-hmm. So all the teachers and the coaches that are there are going to be teaching the concepts in depth after you listen to the attunements and to the healing messages. And then you get to like work with them on your own and then bring them up in class so that you can have help with them or moving through the things that come up for you, which I think is a really great part of the program. It's not just like, listen to this, do this, practice that. Like you literally get help with whatever arises, which when you're working on your energy field, things do arise. Like,
oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. And so you'll have that and that support from everybody.
And it usually becomes a cohort. So what we've noticed is that, you know, people will be going through the same class, change, transformation together. And so they will start to do that. They'll start to bond over that, or, you know, they'll be able to get together offline and be like, okay, yeah, like what happened for you with this week's mantra? Because, you know, I was right there, and oh my gosh, this is how it's been impacting me this week, or this is how like last week coupled with this week is like, wow, or however, you know, like being able to, people start to form a community in the class and be able to share. It's not just like, and you know, if you're somebody who likes to sit at the back of the class and be quiet, not raise your hand, you know, we have a seat for you too.
Yes.
But if you need community and fellowship, it definitely is there.
Yeah.
And so it's happening on Zoom calls, and there's a Facebook group. Is there Kajabi portal,
yes,
et cetera, et cetera?
So there is, it's a Kajabi portal. So I use the platform Kajabi where all of your lessons and everything are in one place. The Facebook group is to remind you of, you know, your appointments, the things that are coming up, to have discussions when needed, and also to go in there and like ask questions. So it's the support group. And then the Zoom calls will be recorded. So if you can't make them, you can always rewatch them. And even if you can't be there, a lot of times, you know, we're tapping into the group as a whole. So whatever issues are arising, even if one person has the issue, they're usually, you know, bringing it, you know, to the awareness of the, you know, because someone else needs to hear it too.
Needs to hear it. That's what I remember a lot happening. Yeah.
And it's not time intensive. So we drop the week's lesson, which is the video that accompanies it, and you have a number of days to watch that, and then we meet, and that's when we do the coaching and go over it in depth, and that's usually about an hour. And so it's really is kind of one of those things. You get out of it what you put into it, but it's not time intensive. It's not like we're doing 3 hours twice a week or crazy like that. Like it is something that most anybody can fit into their schedule.
Can integrate.
As we're enjoying
So
summer.
what are you most excited about and or most curious about? Excited or curious about for this coming iteration, Body of Design?
Seeing other people facilitate it. Like I have kind of like offered it like over, like I'm not like hovering over it anymore. So it's like literally Lauren using her skill sets and me allowing that program to grow in a way that maybe I couldn't do on my own. Like I'm excited about being able to watch it rather than teach it directly. I'm excited to see how it works when I'm not trying to make people understand it. I'm excited about watching new people really enjoy it. It's the best. of all the programs that I've ever done and taught, it's the one that I enjoy the most. It's the most satisfaction that I have. And so besides astrology, besides me just droning on and on about astrology,
I know, we love it. That's your
body of light is probably the most satisfying thing I've done in my spiritual work.
So you'll be much more in the receiving end this go around. So that's going to be fascinating, right?
Yeah. I'll be helping the facilitators embody it even more as they teach it, as they facilitate.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see it roll out. So like seeing, like, it reminds me of that, like if you teach, like you can give a man a fish, or you can teach him to fish, you know what I mean? Like it's like seeing it now is going to go out there and be delivered in that it's not just from my perspective or from your perspective, but like it's everybody is going to have their different perspective that they're going to get to share it with.
Yeah. All the fishermen.
Yeah. She told me that like 2 or 3 years ago, remember? It was like the one thing I was like, oh my God, that's what it is.
What?
The teaching, instead of giving everybody a fish, I was like, you just need
to
teach people how to
teach them to fish. Yeah.
I think that was me catching my ego in my spiritual development. Like not needing people to understand it, like letting people having their own experience to it. And this is part of my evolution too, like letting it be in the hands of people that love it and have their own experience with it.
So how does that align with, how do you know if somebody's going off of the channeled material? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The teachers that have been selected are going to be teaching the core concepts. I don't know if I'm answering it, but like if you're wondering, like, how do we know that the content that is going to be presented is going to be the same that has been presented before, and or
within alignment, evolving it.
Yes, exactly.
From that, right? Yep. I mean, really, it's channeled angelic divine source information at its most pure. And that has to be filtered through our tiny organic filters, right?
Yes.
So
yeah, I think that, like, I always pictured it like when I was thinking about this, I pictured it almost like Reiki, where, I mean, there's all kinds of offshoots of Reiki now, but the fact that there is a core understanding of what it is what I hope to keep pure.
Gotcha. Well, we'll see what happens.
Yes.
You get some mavericks in this group here. Yeah. I mean, there's not a one of us who isn't in some way,
I know. So including you is going to be doing, like, you're going to be presenting at the retreat in September. Really helping.
I haven't really announced that yet. So
well,
yay.
I outed you.
I'm good with that. Yeah. So anything else? I feel like we should start to wrap up. We've been going about an hour here. Anything else you guys want to share about this coming summer, about how you're feeling about it, how you're thinking about it? Just anything that pops up that maybe hasn't come out yet.
The biggest thing for me is knowing that it is a transformational, like, institution, like it still has that transformational aspect, no matter how simply we do it. Like, the whole point of my name, Soulful Transformations, my business name, and with Lauren, bringing in the transformational part with her experience and having her really embody the present moment with what she does so brilliantly and so amazingly, is like bringing students to her is my joy, because she has such a way with words, and the concepts are almost like directly put into students when she presents them. I'm excited about that and how people are going to see her teach it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's something that I had to see for myself when we did it together, and knowing how she just is more like she transfers or transmutes like direct energy to people, and people really feel it. We got a lot of that feedback last time, and I'm excited.
Yes. Injections.
Yeah.
Yes.
And put her on the stage. I don't think she's been given enough opportunity to do that.
Speaking of astrology, my Saturday.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I'm excited for people I'm excited for whoever signs up for it, because they're just going to get it. They're just going to get it, and they're going to feel more connected to their souls, their soul star chakras, their earth star chakras than anybody else's concept could ever tell them who they are.
Amen, sister. All about that. Yeah. Not what we tell them or offer or gift them or bestow upon them, right? Like it has to, the practicum emerges from within.
Yeah.
So you have to do it. You can't just, if you join, you can't just kick back and, I mean, you can just kick back and listen and just let it wash over you. You can do whatever the flip you want to do. And if you actually do the mantras and do the receiving of the transmissions and do, well, there'll be an effect.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Practice.
A lot of times, I could just keep talking. I'm not gonna do that now.
I could just keep talking too, and I keep like reeling it in. Like there's so many little threads of like I was like, oh, that Jim. Oh, well, what about? And I was just like, okay, we're gonna keep it a little short, right? We're just gonna like keep like
cameras are on and start talking again like we did earlier. That was so funny.
All right, you two. Well, thanks a lot for making time just to hang out and chat about it and get excited about it. I feel really mellow. I feel like there's just something like vroom, like mellow about the conversation, you know, that really really grounding and soothing, you know. And I think we forget that, and we were all chatting about this earlier, that for us, like there's something about the body of design, all of that is grounding for us.
Needed after how much friggin' stuff has come in, right?
Oh my God, has it been a season? Like I can't even anymore with. Anyway, thank you, Pluto, for joining us. You know, I'm done. I'm done. Anyway, all right.
Thank you, Christine. Take care.
You're welcome. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to sign up and look above all the links that you need for me, for the Laurens, for Body of Design is going to be up there. It starts early July. Official dates will be rolling out pretty soon. You know how we do. You know how Divine Design Academy does. You know how Lauren does, right? Like it takes a minute. And then it's like, and you're like, all right, glad I waited. Because, you know,
accurate description. Yeah.
So it's coming at you. Let's see, Monday, I'm hanging out with Sky, who's another teacher or support system for this. And then later in the week, I'm going to be chatting with Mr. Hoffman, which is going to be so delightful. I'm excited about that. And perhaps another person later. I still have Katie to chitty chatty with, and maybe I'll chat with these two again sometime. We'll see how it goes. All right. Much love to everybody. Bye.